I want to take a few minutes just to touch on early season smallmouth. We're here the first part of June and these smallmouth are up on these shallow flats, whether it's gravel, rock, sand, weeds, whatever the lake presents itself. Now, I'm not necessarily talking big expansive bodies of water like Mille Lacs and things like that. I'm talking more smaller lakes, how to target these smallmouth this time of year. I'm going to show you a few approaches, some things that have worked for me. Hopefully they work for you, and this is kind of how I'm catching my fish. For starters, I'm always throwing something, at least to find the fish, something that moves, that has some kind of reaction, that kind of triggers the fish to bite, what I call moving baits. And that might come in the form of a chatterbait. It might come in the form of a swim jig, something to that effect. And I'm actually been catching a lot of fish on that that smaller mini or micro jackhammer. It's just a small profile little chatterbait, kind of a cute little thing. And I'm just tipping this with a small little paddle tail or a small little double paddle tail just to give it a little bit more profile. And I'm throwing this thing and just covering water, anything from 2 to 5 feet of water, trying to find where these fish are. Now, usually I'll get that better fish or that aggressive fish to take this. Then I might get some short strikes or whatever, but it gives me an idea of where these fish are. So I'll oftentimes start fan casting with something that's moving, that's getting a reaction out of these fish. And I like to turn towards a small one of these mini jackhammers. Seems to really catch a bunch of fish. Caught a few of them already this morning on this, just kind of looking for the area of where these fish are. Great way to start things off. Another option is just to take your favorite swim bait head. This is just a Smallies smasher from All Terrain, and then you put your favorite little paddle tail on the back, whether it's a 3.0 or 3.8 Kitech, something to that effect. Same thing, fan cast, cover water. I can slow down with this a little more and kind of pull it around and then give it a medium retrieve back to the boat to get those fish to bite. And this would be great around rock, shallow cover, all kinds of stuff. So when you're dealing with lakes that have a little bit of weeds, sometimes this gets maybe a little more of a nod than a chatterbait for me because it's not snagging up as much. I can kind of pop it through. But a swim bait, something in a smaller profiled swim bait, seems to catch a bunch of fish. Next is going to be your jerkbait, and there's tons of varieties of jerkbaits out there. A lot of them catch fish. This just happens to be one of the Rapala versions of a skidder or a skidder wrap or whatever jerkbait version. It's got great kicking action back and forth. I can pause it, I can kick it back and forth, I can work it over shallow cover. This one does float. They make some suspending versions if you need to be getting out a little deeper. We're targeting fish again in 2 to 5 feet of water, so I'm throwing a floating version and I'm just working this, trying to get it to walk back and forth over these fish. Especially if I know there's fish in the zone, I can stall this thing out a little longer in the area, and these jerkbaits really work well. And you just kind of want to match the profile. I generally run with something like a white or a prism, an opaque greens, olive, something to that effect seems to catch a lot of fish. This one here in the bone color has been dynamite. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, the hooks are a little beat up. This one's caught a few fish already, but jerkbait, great way to catch them. And last but not least, as I find these fish and I know they're there and I want to slow down, not much will catch a smallmouth like hair. So I'm fishing anything with 3/32, maybe a 1/8 hair jig. I like black and purple. I like green pumpkins, brown, something darker, more natural. Hair will always, generally speaking, get smallmouth to bite. We've always joked that if they don't bite the hair jig, they're probably not feeding that day. So, and I'm fishing, a 10-pound, braided line with a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader on the end of this, and I'm using a 7.5-foot medium light action rod, 2500 series Shimano, and I can go to town on this and fish these smallmouth. So you got the multiple approach. You have the reaction bait to try to find where they're at, maybe move around, cover some water, get that really hard thump type bite. You have that in a swim bait and maybe a chatterbait or something to that effect. And then you have a jerkbait, and then you have a hair jig. Between that approach, this system of approach, you could probably catch smallmouth anywhere here in the Twin Cities and surrounding area right now. Things will transition in the summer months, and you might change a little bit of your approach and how you target them, but right now, that's how you get bit. Go out there, have some fun, catch some fish.